From the bottom of my heart, I'm sure, and you'll hear it from the family too. I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their day to come to this important event. I'm going to turn the mic over to one of my children's best friends, because she's the school nurse at PS 114, Katie Diffendale, to sing the national anthem.
Please join in singing the Star Spangled Banner. Oh, see, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight all the ramparts we've watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much, Katie. You're going to hear in a minute or two from some people that knew Dylan, certainly much better than I did, but just some quick remarks. I think like a lot of people that stayed through the storm and watched your basements and parts of your first floor disappear and your cars float down, for me, it was 125th Street, and then woke up the next morning and brought your kids out and kind of did a survey of the neighborhood, because we didn't have any power, we didn't have any phone connection, and we started to walk around and see the devastation in the neighborhood, the pieces of boardwalk in our garages, and hear some of the horror stories of what people went through. And then within a few days, you start to get out of the neighborhood, you got power, somebody recharged your cell phone, you got on, you started to watch the news and hear some of the incredibly heroic stories and the resilient stories, the firefighters up in Breezy Point. And then seemingly out of nowhere, there was a story about Dylan Smith. And I think it really sent a message to the world that the people in Rockaway, just like after the crash of Flight 587, after losing so many people on 9/11, this community is resilient. We don't flee, we don't give up, we do what we gotta do, and we take care of each other, so it's an honor to be part of this. Let me introduce Kyle to say a few words about Dylan.
Thank you. As most of you may know, I'm Kyle Escarole, Dylan's cousin. This Wednesday marks the 2-year anniversary of a day that many of us will never forget. We were warned of its magnitude, but not many believed the wrath of what we would soon endure. For me, it started with waking up that Monday morning, October 29th, and running down to the ocean to see what we were in store for. I remember texting Dylan that the waves were huge, but not very surfable. He agreed that as the storm passes, it will get better. The morning went on, preparing more sandbags before I decided I had to leave for higher ground. Talking to Dylan later that day, he told me he wasn't going anywhere. With his father Timmy at work and his younger brother Jake away at school, he said he had to hold down the house with his mother Mary. Hoping for the best, it wasn't until later that night that I realized how bad this storm really was. It was hard to make phone calls, so Dylan relied on texting. He started sending me pictures and short videos of the fires that were raging across the street. He was updating me on what he was doing, which included grabbing surfboards and kayaks from the garage and dragging them into his house just in case. The water was so cold that he also had to grab a wetsuit. He told me that the water was getting deeper and that it was like a river in the street. He sent me a video of the harbor light burning down and told me that its owner, Bernie, had made it out and across the street to Dylan's house, just barely escaping the flames. My conversation with Dylan ended that night when he told me that he had paddled out to help some people. We agreed that we would try calling each other in the morning, as the phone service was terrible that night. It wasn't until the next day that we talked that I heard the true story. It wasn't until I drove to Rockaway and saw my family and some neighbors on this here block that I found out that my cousin Dylan was a hero. He spent the next 2 months tirelessly helping his father put the house and neighborhood back together, doing whatever they could for their family and neighbors. When things started to calm down a bit, he thought he needed to get away. If only for a bit, he wanted to do what he loved in warmer and much calmer weather. Dylan flew down by himself to his family's place in Puerto Rico. Down in the warmer weather, he was never alone, as has been going there since he was a child. There was always a familiar face on the street in Rincon, in the town, or in his favorite place, the ocean. I talked to him every day, telling him how cold it was back home and how jealous I was. He told me the weather was great and the waves were getting bigger and better every day. We lost Dylan on December 23rd that year. Talking to him just the night before, he said the waves were big that day and that he was going to bed early so he can get up and go again in the morning. He left us way too soon, doing what made him happy. Surfing with him in Rincon many times before, there was nothing like seeing the smile on his face after a day of great waves. Surfing all morning and then spending the rest of the day on the beach with his family and friends is what he really enjoyed. Throughout this tragedy, there has been many people who have helped the Smith family these last 2 years. The numerous award ceremonies have showed this family what a great person and hero Dylan truly was. The amount of people that have attended the 2 paddle outs in Dylan's name, as well as the street renaming, really shows the type of community Rockaway Beach, New York really is. So from Dylan's family and close friends, I would like to say thank you to all of you for making this day so special. It really means a lot to Mary, Timmy, Jake, and the rest of his family and friends. Dylan will be with us, always. I can feel his presence each and every day. John Sicker would like to say something as well.
In December 2012, Dylan's uncle Vinny approached me about making a documentary about what Dylan did the night of Superstorm Sandy. He wanted the memory of Dylan's courageous and selfless acts to be kept alive. With the permission of Dylan's mother, Mary, I contacted some of the people that he saved that night and asked them if I could interview them on camera for a documentary I was making about Sandy. I had heard what Dylan had done that night from various people, and I thought, good job, Dill. You paddled around and took people to safety. How naive I was. As I stood behind the camera listening to my neighbors tell their stories, tears streamed from my eyes from the power of those stories. Let me set the stage first. Many people here who stayed that night will never forget what it was like when we watched our town get swallowed up by the ocean. We all have our own stories, but Beach 130th Street was much more devastating. The river that was raging down the street was described by Mike McDonald and Kathy Craig as a raging torrent, carrying with it couches and boilers and all sorts of debris that if the debris hit you as you tried to make your way through the water, it would knock you out. Ray and Lauren Martin described flaming embers the size of softballs raining down from the sky, making it necessary to wear ski masks from getting your face burned. As the fire spread from house to house, it was apparent that no one, not the police, the fire department, could come and help them. Once your house caught fire, it usually started on a deck or a roof. You had no choice but to take whatever you could safely carry and head out into the raging 6-foot deep torrent of water, debris, and fire. Everyone, including elderly men and women and children, leaving their houses and everything in it for the last time, heading into the unknown with no choice. While these people had no choice to go out into this dangerous chaos, Dylan Smith had a choice. Watching from the safety of the window with his mother and 4 family friends who had escaped their own dire situations, he knew what he must do. In a way, though, he had no choice, because that is the kind of man he was. He couldn't sit there and watch when he was a trained lifeguard and had to save lives. He jumped out the window with his surfboard and headed straight towards the fire. It is this helpless environment that I heard story after story about. Just when things seemed most hopeless, Dylan Smith would appear on a surfboard, with his wetsuit and hoodie on, raising the spirits and saving the lives of all he touched that night. Kathy Craig said, out of the black, with embers raining down, across the turret came Dylan. And as Kathy tells it, Dylan pulled up onto her steps with his surfboard and asked in a calm manner, "You guys need help?" After Dylan assisted the 6 people in that house getting across to safety, Mike McDonald said, "I looked at Dylan and he looked at me and I knew where he was going. The fire was making its way down the block and there were more people in desperate situations." One of them was 12-year-old Lauren Martin. She, her brother, and father were forced to evacuate their house. Lauren, wearing a hat over her face to protect her from the embers, had a broken arm and was trying to walk through the high waters and debris and embers. Holding her broken arm over her head so she wouldn't get a cast wet. When she reached the corner, right over there probably, and stepped off the curb, she was totally submerged and jumped back on the sidewalk. She called to her father that she was not going to make it. Her father, Ray Martin, tells it, "At this point, I didn't know what I was going to do, but out of nowhere came a man on a surfboard with his wetsuit and hoodie. Dylan put Lauren on a surfboard, and when he was getting ready to take her to safety, Ray said, 'Who are you?' Dill replied, 'It's Dylan Smith.' And as Ray put it, he said to Dylan, 'I can't thank you enough.' And Dylan just smirked at him and took his daughter to safety. Longtime resident of 60 years, Patricia Fullerton, was holding onto her cane and chain link fence, fighting the torrent. She was trying to get to her niece's house around the corner as her own block burned. As she puts it, out of the darkness magically appeared a young man on a surfboard. He took her hand and pulled her up. She expressed her fears about her weak heart, and he held her tighter. And as she says, his voice was so calm and his demeanor was so calm that I said to myself, I can do this. Although she did not want to appear in the film, she wrote a 5-page letter describing her experiences that night. She wanted people to know how Dylan saved her life. In the letter, she tells how she wanted to thank him, so she crocheted him an Afghan, and as she put it, with thanks in every stitch. She completed it a week before Christmas, but decided to wait to give it to him on Christmas Day. She was heartbroken and collapsed when her son told her the tragic news of Dylan's death 2 days before Christmas. These stories are just the people that I was able to contact for the documentary, but since it's released, others have contacted me because they too were saved by Dylan. I am not sure how many he saved that night. He wanted to downplay it to his family and friends. But when I first heard that Dylan saved people from the burning houses that night, I thought to myself, okay, good job, Dill. You went out and paddled people to safety. After interviewing these people myself, though, I realized what a truly heroic, unselfish, and dangerous thing he did that night. And it is Dylan's spirit that makes our community one of the greatest neighborhoods to live in New York and the world. I made my documentary so Dylan will not be forgotten. I'm naming the street that burned on the night of Superstorm Sandy, Dylan Smith Way. We'll keep his heroic acts and memory alive for generations to come, hopefully inspiring future generations to be selfless neighbors, as he was. If you'd like to see the documentary, if you haven't seen it yet, it's on YouTube and Facebook. It's called 7 Miles to Shore. And I guess that's about it. I'd like to introduce Andrew Healy of the National Life Saving Association. He's going to present the award.
Jake, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrew Healy. I'm a resident of Breezy Point, and I am on the board of directors of the United States Life Saving Association. And we are lifeguards throughout the United States, 10,000 strong, and we recognize the events of Storm Sandy and what Dylan Smith had done that day. It's kind of ironic, and it's only apropos that we stand here in this particular corner when so much tragedy has happened to this community. We're going to name this street after Dylan Smith and that we make this presentation here. You know, Dylan was a lifeguard, and that's why we're here at USLA. In the Lifeguard Association, we have a saying, lifeguards for life. And in many ways, it's a double-edged sword. Once a lifeguard, always a lifeguard. Or the other side of that coin would be lifeguards for life, helping others. And that's truly what Dylan had done on that particular day. You know, Dylan was at peace with himself that day. When everybody else was running out, concerned, trying to get out of here because of all the danger, Dylan was at peace because he was a lifeguard. He was trained. He had a surfboard, he was in the water, and we lifeguards, we call that, you know, true watermen. People have earned their soul as lifeguards and as surfers. So I think it's appropriate we are here to do this. I have with me to present to Jake a Medal of Valor posthumously for Dylan, and a certificate here on behalf of the United States Life Saving Association in honor of the great loss this community has suffered.
I just want to thank Andrew Healy and everyone else in the group for giving me this award. It means a lot to me and everything. And I want to thank everyone else for coming on their own time, coming here and seeing this. And thank you so much. Have a good day.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Eric Ulrich. I'm a member of the City Council representing the Rockaways. And don't talk to me. I'm not here for me today. Hello, Monsignor Brown. Good to see you. Good friend. Dylan Smith's life, I'm sure you heard before, is probably the surest sign of hope that we have, that ordinary people can sometimes do extraordinary things, that one person can make a difference in this world in a very meaningful way, that somehow or another the good Lord will give us the courage to overcome whatever obstacles we're facing. And the lives that he saved during Hurricane Sandy, but also the lives that he touched throughout his life and the impact that his life had on the people that knew him and loved him the best and the most, is all the more reason why we are here today. You see, streets are supposed to be named after people who do truly heroic things and who live heroic lives. Unfortunately, they're named after dead politicians and baseball players and everybody else, but they're supposed to be named for people like Dylan. This is the least that we can do to keep his memory alive, to honor the sacrifices that he made, and yes, to inspire all of the young people in this community to live up to the example that he set for us. And so I was happy to do my part, just a little part, but the community board, the residents, the folks who live in Rockaway here know better than anybody that there is no one else that this street should be named for other than Dylan Smith, and that's why we are here today. So I actually came at the best part. I'm going to ask Dylan's mom, Mary, and Timothy, and anyone else in the family who wants to come up and help us pull the strings. So we're gonna officially unveil Dylan Smith Way. Let me give that to me now. So first, before we pull, we have a gift for the family. This is customary so that you don't have to get outside to see it. You'll always have it in your home. We have a sign, a commemorative sign for the family. So this is, it'll be up to you. Who do you want to do the honor? They'll do it together. Okay.
Boy, Jake.
Smith's way.
Well, the highway.
I'm not good at this. I just wanted to say thank you to Hank Gaiori and the Bell Harbor property owners for initiating this whole thing. And the community, and the community board 14 for voting yes. And Robert Schwach, Eric Goldrich's New York City Council for expediting this so that we could have it done before the second anniversary of Sandy. Thank you so much. And this community is amazing. I can't
I just want to say one more thing.
can I just say something?
Yeah, sure. I asked Mary, are you going to name it, is it going to be named Dylan Smith Street? And she said she's going to name it Dylan Smith Way because, like his father, he's very stubborn and you have to do it Dylan Smith's way.
I forgot to thank Kyle also for speaking and I wanted to thank Rita Regan for helping me so much the past week. Thank you, Rita.
Attaboy, Dylan!
Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much.
I just want to thank everybody for showing up, especially my brother Fireman. I want to tell you a story. Driving Dylan up to college the second year, and he's sitting in the back seat, and I tell him, I go, you know, you got to figure out what you want to do for a living besides party. And he goes, I want to be a fireman. I almost crashed the car because he never mentioned anything about that before. I used to say, you want to go to the firehouse? He'd be like, no. I was like in shock. And from that point on, that's all he had interest in was becoming a fireman. But then when he started having seizures, he knew he would never get that job, and that really hurt him. But I think he wanted the job because he saw how happy I was my whole life with that job. Thank the brothers for showing up.